welcome today to Stefano Picasso, who is joining me for a discussion about sustainability in supply chain. Now, Stefano has a very long track record in industry, formerly the VP of Operations at Firmenich, the Director of Supply Chain Operations at Siegwerk, Head of Global Supply Chain Management at Franke, more recently the Vice President of Integrated Supply Chain at Carlsberg. Currently, he's a board member of PET Recycling in Schweiz, and so has a clear passion for sustainability in supply chain. And so I'm very pleased to welcome Stefano to this podcast today. And I'll just start, Stefano, with you have a wealth of experience in the CPG and also the chemicals industry. What's your reflections on how sustainability is changing over your career in supply chain?
First of all, Matt, thank you to have invited me. So that's a really great question. So I would say in the last 20 years, sustainability has somehow changed from a corporate nice to have topic to a more important and focused area. Maybe some industry have already worked a lot on it, like the chemical industry, because some massive accidents happened in the past. Some want to avoid bad media advertisement, like the tobacco industry. But I would say, yes, now only it's really taking, and a lot of more companies are embracing the journey. It is also very important for us in supply chain to act, because as you know, 80% of the CO2 footprint comes through scope 3, and supply chain is a big actor of scope 3.
Thanks. And one of the things that I've observed, and you've probably come across as well, is that today the conversation on sustainability is really focused on source, make, and move. So how do we have more environmental trucks, or how do we have factories that are carbon neutral? But you just mentioned that 80% of CO2 emissions come from scope 3 emissions are actually from the wider supply chain. And what I've seen is that there's been much less involvement of planning in the sustainability discussion. But do you feel that this is right, or do you feel that there's actually an important role for planning in the sustainability?
Yeah, I do believe, yes, Matt, that's very important. I believe plan need to be more and more involved into the sustainability journey. Usually our planning director, they lack this experience. That's maybe one of the reasons. I could also answer your question with two different approaches: the approach of the CO2 footprint generations and the approach of how we should take long-term and short-term decisions. So maybe let's go for the more obvious one on the CO2 footprint generation. So a major contributor is raw material and landfill. And that's why plan will have a major responsibility to minimize obsolete. So minimizing obsolete, even if they're going to a recycle economy, will be a very important decision to be taken. And that is in the end of planning. The second impact could be transport, and usually we estimate that 5 to 20% of the CO2 footprint come from transport. Here we need to maximize the transport loading in terms of weight and in terms of volume. And here also planning function will have a great accountability to minimize that CO2 footprint. And last but not least, also manufacturing is a generator of CO2 and a bigger water consumption in many industries. So we will in the future may need to schedule different production to maximize, for example, the heat recovery via the heat pump, or to reducing the water consumptions. So here also scheduling, planning will have a role to minimize our environmental impact. If we look at the second dimension, the dimension of short-term and long-term, on the short term, we will take different decision about the inventory, where to put the inventory, when to move the inventory, where to produce, when to produce. Can we get electricity cost going down a certain moment of the day? Can we get more green electricity available? So we will take short-term different decisions, and there are already some examples in the industry where we can see that element moving. The other element is on the long term. We may decide to change our global physical footprint. For example, we may take decision to have a footprint where we use more modal transport, where we mix road and train to reduce the CO2 impact. But that's still not really, some fact that I saw. It's more a fact that I can extrapolate will happen in the next years. So I would say in the conclusion, we have that miracle triangle in supply chain where we need to balance cost, inventory, and services. Tomorrow we will have another one where maybe it will become a square, where we'll have to balance cost, inventory, service, and sustainability. And their planning will have a major role to take the appropriate decision.
Okay, thanks. That's really interesting. And I think when we talk about planning, we're seeing people talking about planning at a big level. For example, recently we've just had COP27, where some of the world's leaders and some of the world's leading organizations have been getting together to talk about sustainability and how do we have a more sustainable future. We see experts who are telling us that we're still not doing enough to keep the global warming below 1.5 degrees. Do you feel that industry needs to take a leading role?
Yeah, I believe industry need to take a leading role, and there's mainly free scope for the industry to make our world more sustainable, first of all. But there's also a need to satisfy new customer. The new customer generation will look at sustainability impact of the industry, and we also need to attract talent. And talent, we also are asking more and more in the interview, the newcomers, what's your sustainability program? So there's three reasons. The impact, environmental impact, the customer, and the talent. But also we need governmental involvement to ensure that we are competing in the fair business world. We need to ensure that local company or good player are not disadvantaged for unsustainable import or for major greenwasher. Greenwashing is not really the long-term sustainability solution.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and I think that personally, I think that Europe is doing particularly well on that sustainability debate at the moment. So let me sort of in your past, you've been very much focused on the sales and operations planning, integrated business planning, and it really comes to my mind that sustainability should be a part of the IBP, S&OP type discussion. What's your thoughts on how do we integrate sustainability into those types of processes in the organization?
Good question. I see that, yeah, first of all, the world is becoming more uncertain every day. So we know we are in a VUCA situations, and that will not go back probably. So the legacy data and our legacy statistical model will be not sufficient. So more and more open and constructive collaboration will be needed in the S&OP. And in that environment is where decisions are taken. We decide what we will do on the long term, on the midterm, and sometimes even on the short term. So this decision, this collaboration, this top management decision on the planning and on the executions will need to have the sustainability in the radar, because the decision will impact the outcome. So I guess IBP and SONOP don't yet, I would tend to say, include sustainability. And in the last turmoil situations, the focus was much on solving the problem on the short terms, but more and more sustainability will become key in IBP and SNOPs.
You mentioned earlier as well about customers and customer expectation changing. Is this something that you're actually seeing happening today? Are customers demanding more sustainable products?
Yes, I would say it's start to come. So some customers, and especially when I talk with my kids that are now in the 20s, they are looking at sustainability impact of the industry where they buy from. They want to minimize their impact. They're asking a lot of questions, and we know the Gen Z and the new generation are our customer of tomorrow. They are the one that will ensure our income on the long terms, and they are asking, and they're going to ask, and we saw in the last years how these have been accelerated, and that I cannot predict what will happen, but surely I believe in our day-to-day life, young customer will ask more and more.
So, and from a technology perspective, do you think that we need different technologies such as in scenario planning or digital twin simulations based on sustainability metrics?
I got good examples also discussing with peers the other day, and we could maybe go back to the information we got from COP27. We heard that if we got 1.5 global warming, we estimate that 19% of the population will suffer once a year of a major climate disruptions. If we're going to go to 2% of climate warming, we can estimate that 37% of the population will suffer once a year of major climate disruptions. So in general, we can see in the next decade or 2 decades, we can extrapolate that 20 to 40% of our global supply chain network, including tier 2, tier 3, and tier 4 supplier, will suffer from a major disruptions. So we will need to react fast. We will need to understand when there's a disruption somewhere, what's the impact of our global supply chain. And that will happen only if we have efficient digital twins. We all did some exercise using Excel. There's a disruption, what we do? We do a task force, we do hundreds and hundreds of analysis, but that cannot be repeated with manual act. We need to automate that. We need to be more reactive. We need to face that more often and to anticipate that. And digital twin will be necessary and will help us into that directions.
Yeah, that's actually really important. That's really interesting, and I'm sure that you've been through those those war rooms, those crisis situations, and maybe that happens once every 5 years, but you're saying that might be happening once every 2 months or really frequently going forward. That's a really interesting perspective. And do you see any other digital transformations that can help us to become more sustainable?
I guess, yes, I see one which is taking place in the transport. So more and more we saw digital transformation that help us to give visibility, to ensure to track where the goods are, and to ensure that we can give a reliable data to our customer. This will also help us in the future to better measure our CO2 impact. So this capability to measure the visibility of the transport and the CO2 impact of the transport will increase. And that technology will also can feed back the planning actions to plan to have less CO2 impact, to have a lower environmental impact. So this visibility in the transport will help us in customer satisfactions and in sustainability, in enable us to achieve our sustainable target.
So actually, that's in order to do that, what you're then talking about is connecting your transportation management system with your planning system in order to create that sort of that customer satisfaction, but also then link that to your CO2 emissions as well, which that's not really that I think is a capability that we need to start developing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. We know that we will need to more and more in starting by Europe to declare our CO2 impact, our environmental impact. We start with approximations. We're gonna get audit. We're gonna have to demonstrate this number. We're gonna have SBTi target. So we're gonna become more and more precise. And with that precision, with that knowledge, we will also feedback to the planning decision, and that decision then will be of higher quality, because then we will take decision in a way to reduce the environmental impact.
Yes, so you're suggesting it's going to be an incremental journey rather than a huge, sudden change.
Yes, I fully agree. Usually there's been one big bang in our history, and usually the big bang in IT, in project development, they're never been successful. So I think it's going to be incremental, because we need to develop the technology, and we need, first of all, to ensure that the people understand what is taking place and the process are adapted. To make the process, the people are as much as important as the technology. The technology is an enabler, but the change comes from the people and the process.
So Stefano, you've been around for a long time in business and I guess a leader in this field. Are you optimistic about the next few years and the future and what we can do in supply chain and supply chain planning to improve sustainability?
I am optimistic because I'm optimistic by nature, and I believe when we look at backwards, we can complain, but we always, as human, have faced and have managed some of the major issues that we had. We just managed a pandemic that we didn't expect, but I think we managed at the end that well. So I believe IBP, and if we go back to IBP and SNOP, it's where the decisions are taking place. It's where collaboration between the different functions are taking place. And I believe that will be becoming more and more important to take the right decision whenever we talk about cost, we talk about sustainability, we talk about service. It's where we're going to have to balance all these elements. And that's where I think that will increase. And maybe what I dream of is maybe one day we were going to see a chief IBP officer appearing in the industry that are independent from sales, from operation, or for finance, but they have their strategic streams in the company, and they are recognized as a pillar of the company.
And I think that would be a brilliant topic for another podcast about the chief IBP officer. I think we would be that would be an interesting discussion. But it's nice to end on a positive note, and really thank you for taking part in this podcast today. I look forward to hearing from you in the future, and maybe hearing about this and other topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. Have a good day and stay in touch.
Thank you.
Bye.